The rain wouldn't stop that night. It beat against the broken roof of Rahim's hut like a cruel reminder that even the sky had more to give than he did. Hungry, cold, and forgotten, the poor man stared at the flickering candle beside him, the last bit of light he owned. He whispered, "Maybe tomorrow will be better." But tomorrow never promised him anything. As he drifted into sleep, something strange happened. In his dream, he walked through a city glowing brighter than the sun. The streets shimmered with gold dust, and people smiled as they passed him. In the center of it all stood a small shop, his shop, filled with lamps that burned without oil. When he touched one, a voice echoed, "Light others, and your darkness will fade." He woke up, heart pounding, the echo still ringing in his ears. The candle beside him had burned out, yet the room glowed faintly as if touched by something unreal. Was it a dream, a sign, or madness? The next morning, Rahim took his last few coins and bought a single lamp. He placed it outside his neighbor's dark home. The following night, he did it again, and again. But with each lamp he gave, strange things began to happen. The air around him grew warmer, softer, almost alive. People whispered that his lamps never went out, not even in the rain. Some said they saw shadows moving within the light, faces maybe, or something else. Rahim didn't care. He had finally found purpose. But one night he woke up to find every lamp in the village burning outside his hut, and a voice behind him whispering, "Now it's time to light yours." In a small, forgotten village surrounded by dusty hills, there lived a man named Rahim. He owned nothing but an old hut, torn clothes, and a heart full of quiet hope. Every morning before sunrise, he walked barefoot to the landlord's fields, working until his hands ached and his back burned under the sun. For all his labor, he earned barely enough to buy a piece of bread and a cup of water. Yet Rahim never complained. At night, when others cursed their fate, he sat outside his hut and gazed at the stars. They seemed like tiny lamps in the sky, each one shining for a reason. "If only," he would whisper, "I could bring such light to this darkness." Then one night everything changed. Rahim dreamed of a city made of golden light. The streets glowed softly, the air shimmered like dawn, and at the center stood a small shop, filled with hundreds of shining lamps. He felt drawn to it like it was calling his soul. When he reached for one, a voice echoed through the light, "Share your light, and you shall never live in darkness." He woke up sweating, the echo still in his ears. The candle beside him had melted away, but his hut seemed faintly glowing, as if touched by something unseen. Rahim couldn't understand it, but something deep within told him this was no ordinary dream. It felt like a message, a promise, waiting to be fulfilled. That morning, he looked at his few coins and whispered, "If light is what I'm meant to share, then let it begin today." The morning sun rose weakly through the mist as Rahim held his last 3 coins in his rough, cracked hands. Those coins were meant for bread, the only meal he would have that day. But the dream still echoed in his heart. "Share your light, and you shall never live in darkness." With hesitant steps, Rahim walked to the village market. He stopped in front of a small shop owned by an old merchant. On the shelf sat a simple oil lamp, plain, dusty, forgotten. "How much?" Rahim asked. The merchant glanced at him, surprised. 3 coins, he replied. Rahim smiled faintly. "Then I'll take it." That night, instead of lighting the lamp inside his own hut, Rahim placed it outside his neighbor's door. Inside lived an old widow and her sick child. The woman watched through the window, tears in her eyes, as Rahim lit the lamp and whispered, "May this light bring warmth to your home." Hours passed. The wind howled, but the flame never flickered. It glowed steadily through the night, bathing the small house in a soft golden light. The next morning, the widow rushed to Rahim's hut with her son. The child was smiling, full of energy for the first time in weeks. "Your lamp, it healed our hearts," she said, her voice trembling. Rahim didn't understand how, but he felt something bloom inside him. Peace, deeper than hunger, stronger than fear. That night, he gazed at the stars again and whispered, "If one lamp can bring this much light, how many more could I share?" And from that day, Rahim made a silent vow. He would fill the whole village with light no matter how poor he remained. Days turned into weeks and Rahim kept his promise. Each evening he worked longer hours in the fields, saving every spare coin he could. He bought one lamp at a time, small, simple, but bright. Every night, when darkness covered the village, Rahim would quietly place another lamp outside a poor family's door. Soon, the village began to glow. What was once a place of shadows and silence now shimmered with gentle light. Children laughed and played under the lamps. Elders gathered to talk, and hope returned to hearts that had forgotten warmth. People began calling him the Man of Lamps, but along with wonder came whispers. "The lamps never go out," one villager said, "even when the oil runs dry." "I saw faces in the light," another murmured, smiling, watching. Some said Rahim's lamps were blessed, others feared they were cursed. One night, a curious boy tried to blow out one of the lamps. No matter how hard he tried, the flame burned stronger, as if alive. Startled, he ran to Rahim's hut. "Uncle, your lights don't die," he cried. Rahim smiled gently. "Light born from kindness never fades, my boy." But even Rahim began to sense something strange. Each time he lit a new lamp, he felt warmth on his skin. Not from the fire, but from something unseen, something watching. He often heard faint whispers in the wind, like the voice from his dream. "Share your light." Still, he wasn't afraid. The light brought peace, not fear. The people had food, laughter, and hope again. Rahim looked over the glowing village one night and thought, "If this is my purpose, then let me burn with them." The seasons changed, and Rahim's lamps became the soul of the village. Travelers who passed through at night would stop in awe, a poor man's village glowing like a sky of stars on the ground. But peace, like all things, never lasts forever. One evening, dark clouds gathered above the hills. The wind howled through the trees like a beast awakening. Villagers hurried indoors, clutching their lamps, praying the storm would pass. Rahim stood outside his hut, watching the sky split with lightning. Rain began to fall, first in drops, then in sheets. The wind screamed, tearing roofs, uprooting trees, flooding the streets. Yet even as the storm raged, the lamps continued to burn. One by one, Rahim saw them glowing in the rain, untouched by the wind. It was impossible. Oil lamps should have died long ago. Rahim stepped out into the storm, soaked to the bone, his eyes fixed on the lights. "What are you?" he whispered into the roaring night. "Whose light am I sharing?" Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and for a brief moment Rahim saw them, figures made of light. Dozens, maybe hundreds, standing beside each glowing lamp. They weren't shadows. They were people. The same villagers he had once helped, their faces peaceful, their eyes shining with gratitude. Rahim fell to his knees, tears mixing with the rain. He finally understood. The light was more than flame. It was faith, kindness, and every good deed he had given away. When dawn broke, the storm had ended. The village was safe, the lamp still burned. But Rahim's hut was empty, his bed untouched, his tools neatly placed. Only his candle remained, still lit, and glowing softly. The villagers searched for Rahim after the storm, but he was nowhere to be found. His hut stood empty, quiet except for the soft glow of the lone candle still burning on his table. No one knew where he had gone, and no one dared move the light. It seemed sacred, as if Rahim's spirit had left it behind. Days turned into weeks, but the village remained different. Every night when darkness fell, the golden glow of lamps appeared outside the poorest homes. Sometimes no one could see anyone placing them. Some villagers swore the lamps floated through the air by themselves, as if carried by invisible hands. Children whispered stories of a man in the storm who walked among the lamps, blessing them. Elders nodded knowingly, saying, "Rahim shared more than light. He shared hope, courage, and love." Travelers who came after years still spoke of a village that never went dark. Lamps burned on every doorstep, soft and steady, even without oil. The villagers continued Rahim's work, guided by the simple truth he had lived by. Share your light, and you shall never live in darkness. Some nights, when the wind was calm and the stars bright, people claimed they could hear Rahim's voice, faint but clear, whispering through the air. Kindness is stronger than hunger. Hope is brighter than despair. Share your light. And so Rahim's dream lived on, not in gold or wealth, but in the hearts of everyone he had touched. A poor man by the world's measure, yes, but a man richer than anyone who ever counted coins, for his light, his hope, and his love had never faded. The village was no longer just a place of shadows. It had become a home of stars, a living dream, glowing softly in the darkness, forever. After the storm passed, the village awoke to an unusual calm. The streets were wet, but the lamps burned steadily outside every humble home. Rahim's hut, however, was empty. His bed was neatly made, his few belongings untouched, and on the table sat a single candle, flickering softly as if alive. No one knew where he had gone. The villagers searched for him, called his name, even asked the travelers passing through. But Rahim had vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared in their lives. And yet his presence lingered. That night the poorest houses glowed with small golden lights, and for the first time, villagers noticed that the lamps seemed to shine on their own, floating gently toward doors, windows, and pathways. Some claimed to see fleeting shadows beside the lamps, the faint outline of a man smiling, watching, and blessing each home. The children told stories of the man of lamps who walked unseen, spreading warmth where none had existed. Elders nodded knowingly, saying, "He was poor in gold, but rich in light." Travelers who came years later marveled at the village that never knew darkness. No matter the night or the season, soft golden glows appeared as if the village itself had been kissed by the heavens. And sometimes, on the quietest nights, the wind carried a gentle voice, almost a whisper. Share your light, for hope is stronger than despair. Kindness is brighter than fear. Never let your heart go dark. Rahim's dream had come true, not in wealth, not in fame, but in something far greater, a legacy of hope, of light, and of love. A poor man by measure of gold, yet a man whose heart had illuminated countless lives. And so, the village lived in his light forever, proof that even the smallest spark when shared can ignite a world.